My name is Kennedy NG, and I am very happy to present to you tonight the Dream City, Union City, New Jersey, which will be an option for the community to know the good things that happen in this beautiful city.
The city of Union City, a cosmopolitan city where almost all of us have seen each other. We are like a large family that through the management of our representatives, they help our citizens. And our people do volunteer work because they know that the city is run by a mayor who has shown that he is not the common politician, but that he works for his community. This program is an extension of information where we are going to have participation of personalities from the public and private sectors so that they can keep us informed of the community. May that be educational activities and everything that benefits us.
Good evening, Union City, the Dream City. As every Sunday, 7 p.m., we have a very special guest. And tonight, we have a very special one, my friend, Fernando Uribe.
That's right, yeah.
How you doing?
Good to see you, Kennedy. Appreciate
you
it.
Tonight?
I feel great. It's an honor to be on this show. I watch it regularly.
The honor is ours. Okay.
Well, that's nice of you to say, but it's a great show, and you do outstanding stuff.
Very good. I know that you have a lot of educational information, general information for the city of Union City and the Dream City.
Absolutely, absolutely. So proud of it, and always looking to contribute. Absolutely.
Fernando, can you tell us, the community, Union City, the Dream City, about you, your backgrounds, educational background, and the things that you have done throughout the years?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'll try to be as concise as I can because I'm half Cuban, so I can talk forever. What I will say is I'm the son and grandson of immigrants, first and foremost. So the idea of having a strong work ethic came from my grandparents, from my parents collectively, both my mom and my aunt, my grandmother and my grandfather leaving Cuba, leaving communism behind. My father leaving Colombia, a bad economy at the time in Latin America, and coming here legally, doing it the right way, and just working hard to establish themselves. I mean, just imagine the challenges, like not knowing the language, no education, some work skills, but again, coming here, starting fresh, I think is why I admire them, and really why I admire immigrants overall.
Yeah. Do you remember what years your parents or your grandpas came to America?
Well, I mean, I certainly wasn't alive, but I know that at least from documented history, I know that my mom and my aunt, my grandparents collectively came in the late 60s, right after so many years of Fidel Castro. Certainly my father came in the late 60s. And it's one of those things where, my parents met working in a factory in West New York. And from there, they fell in love, and subsequently, I came out of that, so.
So back in the 1950s, that a lot of Cuban immigrations were in Union City, the Dream City.
Sure.
And I know you know the background.
Absolutely. Again, after the removal of Batista, obviously with Fidel Castro coming into power and just creating the island into a dictatorship, so many Cubans fled. And subsequently they either came to Miami or they came to Union City. And arguably for decades, Union City was almost like the second Havana, really on the East Coast, because so many Cubans migrated here.
At the beginning of the program, I asked you how you pronounce your name, Yoribe or Uribe. It doesn't matter how people, because I know in Spanish it's Uribe.
Uribe, yeah.
You understand when people call Uribe?
Sure. No, I mean, again, being Hispanic, I mean, obviously the first thing someone's going to say is Fernando Uribe. That's sort of the fluid.
That's good. This is part of information for the city, because sometimes my name is NG, NG. And, we are here, Spanish and English. Sometimes we don't even understand. And I'm Kennedy NG.
Sure.
And that's
absolutely.
why I ask you.
No, absolutely. Again, it's all about sort of our background and our heritage, and really about multiculturalism. It's about sort of looking at names and embracing them in a way that we feel comfortable with. Yeah.
I understand that you have worked for many agencies in the state of New Jersey. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things I'm so grateful about is the idea of working for state government. It was very fulfilling for me, working with the judiciary, working with the Office of the Public Defender. And during that time, after finishing my undergraduate studies at Rutgers in New Brunswick, I felt very comfortable working in government, working in the criminal justice system, because it's something I grew up watching on television, reading, and I really enjoyed it. And subsequently, once I started working for government, I got that itch to go back to school. I mean, sometimes, it's in you. And I kept going to school at Rutgers in Newark for my graduate studies. I was able to get multiple graduate degrees, my 2 masters, my PhD. And I was just really, really grateful that working for state government got me ready to what I continue doing, working in education and working in journalism.
Do you remember your first jobs working for the state of New Jersey, the duties that you used to comply with?
Sure. Well, I mean, being a probation officer was tough. I mean, you're supervising.
Tell me about it.
Supervising adults and also juveniles, and you're really trying to sort of help them get their lives back together, right? Because
it's very touchy. Yeah.
It really is, and at the same time, when we look at our criminal justice system for decades, it was always very punitive, sort of very punishment driven. And what we've seen for the last half century is sort of a movement towards rehabilitation, towards helping adults and juveniles recover, whether it's, again, from addiction, from criminal activity. And I felt it was fulfilling to me to work with this population and get them sort of back on track.
Yeah. When you were a little boy, did you imagine yourself doing that type of job?
No, believe it or not, when I was a little boy, my dream was to be a professional wrestler. I grew up watching pro wrestling, but I'm only
still young to do it. Okay?
Well, I'm only 5'9", so
you are very strong.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm already in my 40s, and I think that window is close. But when I was a child, that's one of my dreams. But subsequently, going to college at Rutgers in New Brunswick, studying criminal justice, sociology, those were like my 2 degrees, and I felt very comfortable working in government because ultimately it's working with people, trying to help people. I know that sometimes, my brand of media doesn't sound very compassionate, but I really am deep down.
Fernando, I know you have several online podcast programs, YouTube programs. I noticed you have been for many years. Why having so many and not only one? Can you explain me that?
Sure. Well, the first one that I started was back in March of 2017 called Talking the Hudson. And you can listen to it on blogtalkradio.com/talkinthehudson. I felt very confident that I could host a weekly on-air radio podcast interviewing important people in Hudson County politics, but also in Hudson County life and in the community.
Exactly.
I've interviewed every mayor, basically, every legislator, commissioners, candidates, activists. And I feel very proud, not just because of the awards. Awards are nice, but at the end of the day, it's about substance and producing good content, which we well know is important. But more so about Talking the Hudson, it was about getting people to listen and to learn about the political process in Hudson County when, again, for years we relied on traditional print newspapers, the Hudson Dispatch.
And we were discussing that before.
Exactly. I'm sort of dating myself here. The Hudson Dispatch, the Jersey Journal, the Hudson Reporter. But let's say in the last 15 years, it's moved progressively from print media to online media, and I felt that, hey, if I do this podcast, it's going to take off, and it has. It's still going strong after 5 years. It's very respected. Certainly, every mayor, Mayor and State Senator Stack loves to go on it. I've had multiple mayors from West New York and North Bergen, Guttenberg. Basically, every mayor in Hudson County.
So every of your programs have its own philosophy.
The podcast I started with Blog Talk Radio is the first one, and then progressively I moved into talking politics in April of 2019 with the Hudson Media Group, and they're a great local.
And that's what I mean by its own philosophy.
Sure. I mean, again, my brand is very, very simple. I'm an unapologetic conservative,
exactly.
But at the same time, I'm also a policy person because, again, I'm an academic, so I can have beliefs and feelings, but at the end of the day, I come at the discussion with policy arguments, and sometimes it's kind of hard to counter me because I bring good arguments because of policy.
Talking about that, you have interviewed a lot of politicians,
sure,
mayors, and this program is not about politics, but it's informative.
Sure.
So, in your own experience, what make a politician, your own opinion, a great politician?
Well, I mean, this is going to sound very biased, but I mean, I've had the pleasure of knowing Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack for almost 20 years. And I think that his accessibility, his transparency, and his dependability is really, I think, the blueprint of what you want. And I'll give you an example, and this is sort of a personal one that really stands out for me. But, I mean, Brian Stack is extremely accessible for a guy that I don't think sleeps because I think he's always working.
We all know that.
Yeah, and he's always working hard during the holidays, during the summer, during mobile meet and greets, working at City Hall, commissioners meetings. But the one thing that stands out for me, specifically about Brian, and I know my family will agree with this, and I really don't like to talk about this too much openly because it gets me sentimental, but in the summer of 2020, we experienced a life-changing pandemic. We experienced losses never known in our lifetime. And subsequently, during that month, May of 2020, I lost my grandmother, who subsequently...
So sorry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. But in the summer of 2018, when she turned 100, Mayor Stack and the Board of Commissioners, especially Commissioner Fernandez, who I love Lucio to death, they made it a point to have a ceremony to honor my grandmother on her block, named the block after her, and went all above and beyond to honor her. And I know that when she passed, I notified the mayor's office, and I was devastated. I mean, my grandmother was my world. My entire family was devastated. But sure enough, when I contacted the mayor's office, within a day or two, the mayor, along with surrogates from the office, reached out to me and said, listen, if you and your family are going to have issues with funeral arrangements and burial services, we will help you. And when the mayor was that accessible, when he was that expedient and said, Fernando, we're sorry for your loss here at City Hall. Let's talk and we will make sure we help you with, because again, funeral and burial arrangements are expensive, and especially what we lived through COVID in 2020, it was overwhelming. So when I think about how dependable he is and how accessible he is, I just look back to that day when my world shattered.
And this is a big difference about Brian Stack and all the politicians.
Yeah.
Not for nothing, my personal opinion too, is the humanity as a person. It's not only about talking politics and things.
Sure.
When people need something, he's there.
And he was. And again, when I think about those difficult days leading up to the funeral, really, and again, it was limited, right? COVID, you can only have immediate family.
Exactly.
And my grandmother, again, was 101 years old. She was a staple in the community. If we had not had COVID...
What is the address, the street that you mentioned?
47th Street.
47?
Between New York Avenue and Palisade. And, obviously because of COVID, only immediate family was allowed during the funeral service. But I can tell you wholeheartedly, she was so loved that had it not been for COVID, we would have had a line out the door at Morgado Funeral Home to pay their respects for her. And again, the mayor was so gracious, and my family and I are forever grateful to him because of that.
You answer my question.
Yeah, forever grateful to him.
Thank you. Fernando, I know that you have been involved in different type of interviews with, general public politicians, but in terms of politicians, do you identify during the interview that person, the politicians are talking from the heart?
Well, I would argue that every guest I've ever had, whether it be on my podcast, Talk on the Hudson, whether it be highlights that I talk about on Talking Politics with the Hudson Media Group, or on my Monday night show, Real Talk.
But you know what I mean?
Sure.
You can feel when someone is really talking from the heart.
I would argue that I think that if you're going to come on my show, I expect you to be transparent, and I expect you to be forthcoming and willing to have a discussion where, we can agree to disagree. Again, my brand is a very conservative brand of politics. However, I interview everybody from the right to the left to the middle, and people respect the show, which is why I've had the president of the National Organization for Women on, to the head of the New Jersey Republicans, and everybody in the middle, journalists, candidates, activists.
It's about respect.
It's about having a conversation, which I think that we're living in this time of tribalism where sometimes people struggle to have a civil dialogue, and that's not the case with my show. Not once has there ever been an argument on my show. Never once has there ever been someone hanging up or saying, no, that's it, cut the interview. No, it's a civil dialogue. You know where I'm coming from. I'm a conservative. I don't apologize for it. But however, we talk policy, we talk solutions, we talk about examining what's going on in the political climate. And I think that regardless of where you are, as an elected official, as a candidate, as a journalist, activist, whoever, you can come on my show. You're always going to have a fair interview and a fair conversation. I think that's what people are looking for when it comes to media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, Fernando, tell me about the fundraising that you perform, I believe, every year, American Cancer Society. Can you tell the community about that?
Sure.
Very important.
Absolutely. I have been a dedicated fan of philanthropy for years now. Going back to my college days at Rutgers, New Brunswick, doing it with obviously Greek life, which is part of, when you're in a fraternity, right? Phi Sigma Kappa, always forever. Part of the aspect is trying to serve the community. And that's something that I learned early on during my college days in New Brunswick. And then subsequently, well into adulthood, into graduate school and everything else, I felt that giving back to the community, and breast cancer is such a cause. And again, it's never affected me personally. I've been very fortunate to have my mother, my aunt still with me. Again, they get regular mammograms every year and checkups. But I know way too many people, friends and neighbors, that have struggled with breast cancer. And subsequently in 2008, when I was still in grad school, I said, I had this idea, let me start a fundraising event every year. And if I get 20 people to show up and I collect, I don't know, $200, then I'm doing something little by little. So I started a professor's quest to save breasts, because again, I was in grad school and I was teaching. So it was something that, while the name is clever, it may not rub everybody the right way, but subsequently now, coming up this October, it'll be the 15th consecutive year that I've been doing this event. Now, even during COVID, even though it was online, I've still been consistent and dedicated to raising money for breast cancer.
Fernando, you're doing a great thing.
Thank you.
This is a good thing for the society, and it is good that you are explaining what you do in American Cancer Society, and you never know what happened, member of the family, you never know.
No, and also too, I've been very fortunate the last few years to be partnering with the Union City local PBA, the men and women of what I would argue is the best police department in the state of New Jersey.
This is the Dream City.
Absolutely.
And that's why we call it the Dream City.
Absolutely. It's a Dream City because it has the Dream Department.
Exactly.
And when I think about those hardworking men and women every year that volunteer with me, that we partner together to fundraise for breast cancer awareness, to me it's a privilege to work with them because I respect law enforcement so much. And what they give back to the community and what I do the same thing is, to me, it's rewarding. And again, it's laborious, it's exhausting, hosting the events, collecting money, going to do the walk, but it's fulfilling to me.
How you find the time to manage all the activities that you do, the programs, working full time, is very hard.
Well, I don't sleep very much either. Even though I'm a big person that believes in naps every day, I always feel that staying busy is productive. Whether it's with my days in graduate school, working for the state, then transition.
And you help in the community, that's important.
Sure, and then transitioning to higher education, working in journalism. I've always felt that my skill set can bring just an amazing amount of productivity to the community, and at the same time I feel relieved that I'm making a difference, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's my brand of journalism that wins awards. I know that bothers some people, but it's award winning.
Hey, it doesn't matter.
No, but
when we are doing good things, always going to bother people.
Oh, absolutely. You can never please everybody, but I think that especially when it comes to philanthropy, working in the community, servicing the community, I think at the end of the day, yes, sometimes maybe you don't sleep as much as you would like, but it's very fulfilling.
Fernando, the Dream City program every Sunday at 7 p.m. Your personal opinion. This is a very new program, only, I would say, 4 months.
Okay.
What is your opinion about the Dream City?
Well, the Dream City, I think, is an amazing show. Number one, the traffic speaks for itself. But what I would argue, too, though, Kennedy, is the idea that Union City has been, I would argue, the staple and the model city for not just sort of urban areas in New Jersey, but the entire state of New Jersey, because it's so densely populated. There's so much multiculturalism here. There is just so much commerce. There is just so much going on that I think when you look at Union City, and again, as we approach 100 years in 2025, it's, again, because of the mayor, because of the Board of Commissioners, and really all the hardworking women and men at City Hall, and really within the city of Union City itself, it makes it the Dream City. So it's not just a catchphrase for you for a show, but I think it's the Dream City where people want to come live, they want to shop, they want to have a family, want to send their kids to school. By the way, one of the better school systems in the state, if not the country. Again, the New York Times did say that a few years ago. So, I think that's also
and I
something.
have mentioned in other programs about the school district, Union City. Yeah. And I know you work for us too, and you do a good job. Okay.
Thank you. That's really nice
I
of you.
just hear about that report.
Thank you. That's nice of you to say.
Good. Fernando, tell me something. You are a very educated person.
Thank you.
And I admire that. Okay.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Do you have any aspiration to represent the community? I'm talking in general.
Well, I would say this. I think that my representation of the community, I would argue, is more through media. Do I have any desire to seek elected office? No. That's not something that interests me at the moment. I ran for office years ago for a state assembly seat. I did it because I was interested in running a campaign. But I would argue that my brand of journalism, especially being Hispanic, where there are not many Hispanics within the realm of media, whether it be in Hudson County, whether it be in New Jersey or nationally. So to me, my dream goal really and job is to be that pinnacle for other Hispanics that want to get involved in media, because it is a tough business. It's demanding. It's cutthroat. It's vicious. You have to have a thick skin, but more so, you have to be dedicated. So for me, in terms of representation, I would say that I'm hungry to keep representing Hispanics in media, especially in conservative media, because we're Hispanics. So the way we've grown up in Latin America, whether it be the Caribbean, Central or South America collectively, there's a certain conservative upbringing that we hold from our parents, from our grandparents, and we don't always have to agree on every policy prescription
Sure.
or every viewpoint. But there's an element of conservatism that's embedded within the Hispanic community, and I'm just someone that tries to bring that out there in a respectful manner. Yeah, I'm a little colorful sometimes, but you have to be a little bit, someone that stands out from everybody else in the field of journalism.
Fernando, anything that you can say to the community, the Dream City, that we probably didn't cover during our conversation?
Well, I would just say that, again, if you can, please check out all of my great podcasts, whether it be the Hudson Media Group, with Talking Politics with them, also with Talking the Hudson via Blog Talk Radio, and also on Monday nights, Real Talk with Jersey First TV. And all I can tell you is have an open mind. I interview everybody under the political sun, journalists, activists, people that matter in the community, not just in Hudson County, but throughout the state of New Jersey. I think that's something that, very much like Kennedy's excellent show, it's making a difference in the community. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's all we can do when we're involved in media, when we're involved in any form of entertainment and information. That's the best we can do.
Thank you, Fernando, for
All right.
coming to the show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that you took the time, and know that you said that you've been involved in different activities, and I really appreciate it, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Kennedy Ng.